guys know that the Butterick Fall Winter 2024 just dropped today, all right? And it's 16 patterns that they drop. But you guys know that I am here to not only show you guys the Butterick Fall Winter 2024 pattern, but I'm also here to give you guys that pattern comparison as well as save y'all some money, some moolah, some pesos, dineros, yens, and everything like thereof, including some euros. All of them means money, all right? So if that's some content you would like to see on what patterns are similar to another pattern, please continue to watch. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Rochelle from Rochelle.Handmade.Designs. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys the Butterick Fall Winter 2024 pattern that just dropped today, okay? So it just dropped today and I am sitting down with you guys today to share those patterns. It's only 16 that I'm going to be sharing with you guys, as well as the pattern comparison, sewing patterns related that I feel that are similar to the other patterns that's in this collection. So if you are new to the channel, welcome. And if you are returning, you guys know what to do. Quick snack, something to drink, grab a notebook so you can take these down as well. So without further ado, to keep this video short, sweet, give you all the deets and the news that you can use on this video, let's go ahead and talk about it, shall we? All right, so this collection runs from Butterick 7005 all the way to Butterick 7020. So it's 16 patterns that I'm gonna be sharing with you guys today. So let's go ahead and get into the first one, which being, all of these are Butterick, so I'm just gonna say the number, 7005. So for 7005, this is a button-down dress with sleeve variation. This is an average to sew pattern. It's an unlined fit and flared dress. It has princess seams, decorative front flaps, and front button closure. View A has long sleeves with elbow darts for shaping, and then view B has the short sleeves with the cuff details, which is fit for petite ladies as well. Now, like I mentioned, it is an average to sew pattern. In terms of sizing, it's two pattern envelopes, size 4 to 12, and then the second pattern envelope is 14 to 22. Now, I like this pattern. I will be picking up this pattern, but let's talk about fabrics. So in terms of fabrics for this pattern, you could use crepe, gabardine, medium weight wovens fabric, some wool blends, and some sateen. You will need some lightweight fusible interfacing. The notions that you will need will be buttons. So for view A, you need 10 half-inch buttons, and then view B, you're going to need 12 3/4 inch buttons for this one as well. Now, this one did not remind me of a pattern when I was looking, but it is similar to a Vogue pattern. And I'm gonna put it up on the screen because all I could see is this blue dress. It's not like super similar, but it reminds me of that same style lines, okay? I believe the pattern number is Vogue 8887. I think is the pattern number. I'm gonna put it up on the screen so you're able to see that. But I think it's similar, but not super similar, if that makes sense, all right? So let's go ahead and get into the next pattern, being 7006. So Butterick 7006 is an off-the-shoulder dress. It has slim or full skirt, lining, and an invisible back zipper. So view A has a back slit, and then view B has a flared skirt with gores. Now, it is an average to sew pattern. In terms of sizing, it's two pattern envelopes. The first pattern envelope is size 8 to 16, and the second pattern envelope is 18 to 26. Let's talk fabrics. So in terms of fabric for this pattern, you can use crepe, linen blends, medium weight woven, shantung, just to name a few. You're going to need some lining fabric, and you're going to need some interfacing for this. In terms of notions, the only notion you're going to need is a 20-inch invisible zipper. So that's the only notion that you're going to need. Make sure you look at the finished garment measurement as well. The sizing is between 8 and 26 in terms of the bust, waist, and hips. The bust is size 36 to 52. So it's 16 inches in size weight for the bust. So this can be size inclusive as well, but just make sure you check out those finished garment measurements. Now, this pattern does remind me of a previous Butterick pattern that I know Renata sewn. Now, Renata from the Twilight Stitcher, I have not seen her on Instagram or YouTube in a while, but she made this pattern, and the pattern is Butterick 6129 for this pattern. It's very similar to that pattern that came out in like 2014. I do have this pattern in my stash, Butterick 6129, but I think I am going to go ahead and pick this pattern up as well, which is Butterick 7006. Let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern, 7007. Butterick 7007 is a missus jacket and coat. It's lined, very loose fitting double breast jacket and coat. It has a long raglan sleeves with bias cuffs, front welt pockets, a notch collar, top stitching, and length variation. Now, view B has your back vent. This pattern is an average to sew pattern. So in terms of sizing, it's 2 pattern envelope. The first one is size 8 to 16, and the second pattern envelope is size 14 to 22. Let's talk fabric. So in terms of fabric for this pattern, you could use gabardines, denim, medium weight wool blends, or even synthetic leather. You're going to need some lining fabric for this pattern, as well as some lightweight fusible interfacing as well. In terms of notions, you're going to need 5 7/8" buttons to cover, like covered buttons, and then view B, you're going to need 5 7/8" buttons as well. So view A are covered buttons, whereas view B, you don't have to have them covered as well. Now, this pattern does remind me of another pattern, which is a very super old pattern, and that pattern is Vogue 7871. The silhouette is pretty much similar, so that's why I'm highlighting that pattern as well. But once again, that pattern is Vogue 7871. And the pattern that just dropped was Butterick 7007. Let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern, 7008. So Butterick 7008 is an average to sew pattern. It is a very loose fitting lined bomber jacket with collar variation. It has drop shoulders, front zipper closure, welt pockets with the flaps, and long 2-piece sleeves with button cuffs. Now, in terms of sizing for this pattern, it's 2 pattern envelopes, size 6 to 14, and then size 16 to 24. Let's talk fabrics for this one. So in terms of fabric for this pattern, you could use a lot of different fabrics like your denim, your gabardine, your medium weight wool blends, synthetic suede, just to name a few. You're going to need some lining fabric as well as some lightweight fusible interfacing. So in terms of the notions, for both views, A or B, you're going to need a 24" separating zipper, and you could cut that to fit the sides. And then you're also going to need 2 3/4" buttons. Now, if you are doing view A, you're going to need a strip of, I'm just gonna say a strip of rimmets that measures 7 inches by 38 inches, which would be like rib knit trim as well, like your rib knit, all right? But that's what you have for 7008. Now, this pattern does remind me of a older pattern, which is Butterick 5372, which if you have not been sewing for a long time, you probably don't remember this, but Butterick used to have see and sew patterns. So this one reminds me of a see and sew pattern, which happens to be Butterick 5372 for that pattern. And for Butterick 5372, the reason why I'm highlighting this pattern is because that one is a boxy jacket. It's an easy see and sew Butterick pattern. And that one has a bust range of 38 to 44 inches, a waist measurement of 30 to 37 inches, and then a hip measurement of size 40 to 46 inches. Now, the see and sew patterns used to be like easy to sew. Yes, it's easy to sew. And it just reminds me of that pattern for that one, same pretty much silhouette or whatnot. So that's why I'm highlighting that pattern. And yes, I do have Butterick 5372 in my stash, but I may actually pick this pattern up because I would have to dig quite a bit just to do that. And I could hack one and keep one the same. You never know. All right. But let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern. That pattern was 7008. Moving over to the next pattern, which is 7009. And 7009 is a Mrs. Tunic and pant set or a court set. Now this is an average to sew pattern. It is an asymmetrical front tunic. It have round neck, invisible back zipper, and tapered or long tulip sleeves. Now the taper pants have the cross grain waist facing and an invisible side zipper with a hook and eye closure. Let's talk sizing. So in terms of sizing, it's two sides patterns or two pattern envelopes, size 8 to 16 on the first one and 18 to 26 on the second pattern envelope. Let's talk fabrics. So in terms of fabrics, you could use crepe, you could use jacquard, you could use a matte jersey as well. You're going to need some interfacing, which is lightweight fusible interfacing. Now, in terms of notions for both views, you're going to need a 12-inch invisible zipper. And then view C, which are your pants, you're going to need a 7-inch invisible zipper and of course a hook and eye closure, as well as a 1/2 inch cross grain ribbon, which you're going to need about 1 3/8, but I'm just going to say get 1.5 yards of that cross grain ribbon as well. Now for this one doesn't remind me of a pattern. It reminds me of a pattern, but it doesn't remind me of a pattern. So the top reminds me of a McCall's pattern. I do not know the number off the top of my head. I would have to go way back in my documents of patterns that I own to tell you, but I see it. I see the picture of the pattern, and I know it's in the 6400 series. I want to say 6465, but for some reason, I feel like that one is completely wrong. So if I can find that pattern, I will go ahead and put it up on the screen, and also link, drop it in the description box below so you're able to see what pattern it reminds me of. That tunic that's on this pattern completely reminds me of this McCall pattern, where it's like blue and black. It's a color block. So if you know what I'm talking about, please let me know in the comment section below or DM me to let me know as well. All right. But once again, this pattern is Butterick 7009. Let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern, 7010. So Butterick 7010 is a Mrs. shirt, and this is a average to sew pattern. It's a semi-fitted button front shirt. It have pointed collars, neck band, set-in sleeves with the button cuffs and placket opening. It has edge stitching, a shape hem. Now view A has the contrast, and then view B have the front, which is cut on the bias as well. Now in terms of sizing for this pattern, is two pattern envelopes, size 8 to 16 on the first one, and size 14 to 22 on that second pattern envelope. When it comes to fabric, you can use any type of fabric, wovens preferably, your cotton shirting, your linen, your poplin, your sateen, just to name a few. You're going to need some lightweight fusible interfacing, and in terms of notions, you're going to need 9 1/2-inch buttons. Now, this one is no secret what this pattern reminds me of, because I have mentioned this pattern so many times, and it's one of my favorite patterns to do for a button-down shirt. And that pattern is Simplicity 1538. The color block, which is view A, it reminds me of that pattern. View B reminds me of a McCall's pattern. I'm going to put it up on the screen because I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but I know it's in the 7500 series. Okay. I know you guys are like, Rochelle, how do you remember this number? Look, when you look at patterns all the time, like I do, you remember part of the number or all of the numbers. Okay. And plus, you guys know I used to be a math teacher. So numbers is my thing. Okay. They're my thing. All right. It's my jam. All right, but let's go ahead and get over to the next pattern, which is 7011. So Butterick 7011 is a Mrs. shirt as well. This is an average to sew pattern. It is a front button down shirt with sleeve variation. It have a spread collar, drop shoulders, and a back yoke with box pleat. Now view A is a crop top with short sleeves, and view B has the front self tie, a high-low hem, and long sleeve with button cuffs as well. Now in terms of sizing for this pattern, is two pattern envelopes, size 6 to 14, and the second pattern envelope is size 16 to 24. Let's talk fabrics. So in terms of fabrics, you can use regular broadcloth, which is cotton fabric, challis, chambray, cotton blends, linen, just to name a few for those. In terms of notions, view A, you're going to need 6 5/8 inch buttons. And then view B, you're going to need a little bit more on the button side of 10 5/8 inch buttons as well. Now, this pattern reminds me of a pattern of Butterick 6324. The difference with that pattern is, yes, it has a crop top, but the placket area is concealed. It's pretty much hidden placket for that pattern as well. I have Butterick 6324. I have sewn that pattern before. It is really, really nice to do that pattern, but I am definitely picking up this pattern. Like I mentioned, this Butterick collection is pretty decent. So there's going to be quite a bit of patterns that I'm going to be picking up for this one and sewing as well. All right. But once again, this one is 7011. Let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern, 7012. So 7012 is a Mrs. Jacket, skirt, and pants pattern. This is an average to sew pattern. It is a semi-fitted lined jacket. It has the notch collar, shoulder pads, princess seams, and long two-piece sleeve with a working vent. Now, view B, which is your unlined flared skirt, it has gores and invisible side zipper. Full length pants, which is view C, have the front pleats, side seam pockets, a fly front zipper, and a waistband with belt loops and hook and eye closure. Now, for this one, in terms of sizing for the pattern, it's 2 pattern envelope sides, 8 to 16, and then 18 to 26 on the second pattern envelope. Let's go ahead and talk about fabrics for this one. So in terms of fabrics, you can use gabardine, you can use linen, wool blends, wool suiting, just to name a few. In terms of notions, view A, you can use shoulder pads for that. You will need 1 7/8 inch button and 6 5/8 inch buttons, which would be, I'm pretty sure the smaller buttons would be for your sleeves, okay? Now, view B, which is the skirt, you're going to need a 7-inch invisible zipper and a hook and eye closure. When it comes to the pants, which is view C, you're going to need 7-inch exposed or all-purpose zipper because it has a fly front. So you can't use the invisible zipper for a fly front. You're also going to need 2 hook and bar closure for that and 1 5/8 inch button that's going to be on the inside instead of on the outside of your pants. Now for this pattern, 7012, it does remind me of a pattern, and that pattern is Butterick 5962. Now, Butterick 5962 is a Gertie pattern from way back in the days, okay? And the skirt, that gored skirt reminds me of that pattern, as well as like the jacket reminds me of the pattern. Now the pants could be an added pattern, even though Gertie has a pant pattern. So this could be essentially a Gertie pattern without naming it a Gertie pattern. You know how they do. Okay, let's act like we don't know, all right? But once again, this pattern is 7012. Let's move over to the next pattern, which is 7013. Now, 7012, I'm on the fence if I'm going to pick it up. Right now, I'm on a hold. I'm not, but we will see what that looks like after I dissect the line art a little bit closer, all right? So once again, that is 7012. Let's go ahead and move into 7013. So 7013 is a Mrs. knit top, skirt, and pants pattern. This is an easy to sew pattern. So I'm just gonna say right now that with this pattern, you can do all the views and have you a nice work wear, okay? So if you work from home, this pattern will be from you. Once again, it's 7013. Let's go ahead and talk about it. So it's a loose fitting top. View A has a crisscross front, high-low hem, and a collar band. It's close fitting as well. So view B is a close fitting pullover top with a turtleneck, long set-in sleeves, and bust darts. Now, view C is your pull-on skirt, and view D is a pair of pants that have elastic at the waist. Like I mentioned, it's an easy to sew pattern. So in terms of sizing, it's 1 pattern envelope, extra small to extra large. Now, I did mention this is knit. So what fabric will you need to use? You would need to use some moderate stretch knit. 35% cross grain for this one, like your cotton knits, your ITY, interlock, jersey, just to name a few there. Now, when it comes to notions, view A and view B, it's a no notion pattern. Okay, so write it down. It is a no notion pattern. Now, when it comes to view C and view D, the only thing you're going to need is elastic. Elastic for the skirt, elastic for the pants. Now, in terms of the elastic, you need 1 inch elastic, and you're going to need 1 3/8 yards. I'm just going to say 1.5 yards each of the 1 inch elastic. So if you're doing both the skirt and the pair of pants, you're going to need roughly about 3 yards of fabric in order to do both. So just pick up 1 pack of elastic that already measure 3 yards in order to do the skirt and the pants for this pattern, because this pattern, once again, 7013, would be a good pattern for you to use if you work from home like myself, and some of you guys work from home as well, or have a few days that you work from home, like a hybrid schedule. All right, so once again, this pattern is 7013. Let's move over to the next pattern, 7014. So before I go into 7014, back to 7013, the top reminds me of Butterick 6848. So if you have that pattern, you can do that pattern for a top as well. Good for workwear as well. All right, so I just wanted to tell you guys that as well. But let's go ahead and move over into 7014. So 7014 is a missus and woman's lounge dress top and pant pattern. It is another easy to sew pattern. This is a semi-fitted dress and top. It have long sleeves with sleeve band, a cowl neck with adjustable drawstrings and hemband. So the top has a side opening, and the pull-on pants have elastic waistband, front pockets, and leg bands as well. Now, this pattern reminds me of that Butterick pattern that came out, I want to say fall of last year, that I called a house gown. I'm going to put it up on the screen because I don't remember the exact number. However, this pattern also reminds me of a pattern of Butterick 6494. In my head, I remember it being kind of like a knit top, a pair of pants, and I believe like a dress or something like that. So it reminds me of that pattern as well, but let's go ahead and talk about the sizing and the fabric for this pattern. So in terms of sizing for this pattern, it's 2 pattern envelope, extra small to extra large on the first pattern. And then the second pattern is 1X to 5X, which means this pattern is super size inclusive. All right. So when it comes to fabric, I already mentioned knit because you're going to need knit, but you can use fleece, French terry, velour, just to name a few. It is easy to sew. In terms of notion, you're going to need 2 yards of 1/4 inch cording. That's for view A and view B. And then for view B, you're also going to need some elastic. And then for the pants, you're also going to need some elastic for that. So entire view B, the top and the pants, you will need elastic. All right. So do not skip out on the elastic for this pattern as well. All right. But once again, that pattern is 7014. Let's move over to the next pattern, 7015. So 7015 is a missus nightgown with sleeve and length variations. It's an average to sew pattern. It is a nightgown with front button opening featuring delicate eyelets, lace trim at the neckline, yoke, and cuffs. Now, let me say this. This pattern reminds me of so many freaking Butterick patterns that are nightgown. I can literally just list them off, but I don't know exactly which one I want to list off because there's so many. I mean, like every year, Butterick comes out with a lot of nightgowns during the fall, winter time. I have so many of them. Now, this pattern right here, I am definitely going to be skipping because I just feel like I don't need any more nightgown patterns because let's just be honest. Do I really wear nightgowns? Maybe around the house, but not going to bed. Okay, TMI, but you know, I don't need another nightgown pattern. Now, robes all day, but nightgowns, not my thing. Okay, but once again, this is 70115. Let's go ahead and talk about the sizing and the fabric. So in terms of sizing for this pattern, it's 1 pattern envelope, extra small to extra, extra large. In terms of fabric for this pattern, you can use cotton, cotton blends, flannel, just to name a few. In terms of notions, you're going to need some buttons and some elastic. Now, if you are doing view B, you're going to need a pack of single fold bias tape, and then you're going to need 7/8 yards, or I'm just going to say 9 yards of a 1 1/4 inch flat eyelets or lace. Okay, so that's a lot for this pattern, but do what suits you. What is budget friendly for you as well. All right. But once again, this pattern is 7015. Let's go ahead and move over to the next one, being 7016. All right, let's go ahead and move into the next pattern, being 7016, which is I'm going to say a family style pattern that's a jacket. All right, so this pattern is a girls and boys and adult jacket. This is an average to sew pattern. It is a button front family size jacket. It has pointed collar, long sleeves, flat patch pockets, and front and back yoke. So view B has contrast at the yoke, collar, and the pocket, so you can contrast that as well. Let's talk sizing. So in terms of pattern envelope sizing, it's one pattern envelope. So it's basically one envelope fits all the sizes, both girls, boys, children, and adults. And that pattern range extra small to large on the children's sides, and then extra small to extra large on the adult sides. Let's talk fabric. So in terms of fabric, you can use corduroy, which would be probably what I would be using. Denim, poplin, and twill. I would use twill as well for this one. Those are the things that you will need in terms of fabric. In terms of notion, you're gonna need some lightweight fusible interfacing, so don't skip out on that. In terms of notions, you're gonna need 6 3/4 inch buttons for this one as well. All right, so once again, this is 7016. Now this pattern definitely reminds me of another pattern, which is a McCall's pattern, by the way. Okay, and that pattern is McCall 7638. Now this pattern, McCall 7638, is a men's and boy line button front jacket with a hood option. So if you wanted a hood option, you could definitely take the hood from McCall 7638 and place it onto that. That would be considered a pattern hack. Now, you guys know my girl Chris from Unsocial is the queen of the pattern hackathon, and you guys hear me say this every once so often, that I received a comment on one of my videos that I just posted. I think it was the Vogue or even Know Me, or it was one of the videos. McCall's Know Me or Vogue pattern drop that just dropped last week. And one of my viewers stated that she wasn't aware what pattern hacking was until she's seen my video, C from We See Style, Raven from Raven Marine, and Anita from Anita by Designs. All the ladies are fabulous. I follow every last one of them. We See Style, I follow Raven, I follow Anita, Miss Anita, which is our rich auntie, okay? I feel like just because you didn't know that pattern hacking, but you know, to hack a pattern is considered pattern hacking, but some people use the term Franken pattern. So they're used interchangeable, but I'm glad that you now know what pattern hacking is, because even though I don't share a lot of pattern hacks on the channel, my husband decided to tell me that I need to show more pattern hacks, because you guys may actually love the hacks that I actually do that I just don't share. I will share kind of like the pattern review and don't share a lot of the hacks with you guys. And I never understood why I never did. And it's probably because with so long, you want to see what it's like outside of the pattern. So I think moving into the next year, I should say, I will be sharing the pattern straight out of the package, as is, no warranty, but also sharing a hack with you just in case you're interested in that hack. All right. But This pattern reminds me of McCall 7638. Let's move over to the next pattern. So the next pattern is a vintage pattern. So the next couple of patterns are vintage patterns. This one is 7017. So this is a 1950 set of sleeves from dresses and blouses. Now this reminds me of a simplicity pattern where you can use that pattern and get tons of sleeve options. I'm going to put it up on the screen so you're able to see that as well. But this pattern is a vintage Butterick 1950 set of 6 sleeves for dresses and blouses that you could do. A is the sheared elbow sleeve. View B is a bishop sleeve with elastic at the wrist. View C is a cuff bishop sleeve. C1 is a lantern sleeve cuffed at the elbow. And then view D is a huge on or off shoulder puff sleeve. All right. And then you have view E, which is a long dolman sleeve. So this is a authentic vintage reproduction pattern as well. So if you do not have that simplicity pattern, you could definitely get this pattern, and basically so any pattern you want, and just use this pattern to change out the sleeve. That would be a what? A pattern hack. You're welcome. All right, let's move over to the next pattern, which is 7018. So 7018 is a 1960s Mrs. Vest and 4 styles. Now, I said this a couple of months ago that I need some vests. Even though I work from home, I like a vest. And this may be a pattern that your girl may do all options on this pattern. Okay, so but let's go ahead and get into what this pattern is. So this is a vintage Butterick 1960s vest or waistcoat in 4 styles. View A is a single breasted lined vest with V-neck. View B is a U-neck version with a fake pocket flap. So it's fake, all right? It's a saddle stitch detail. And then view CD is your double breasted waist length vest with white V or U neck as well. Now, this is a authentic vintage reproduction pattern. It is an easy to sew pattern as well, which I do like. Let's talk about the sizing for this pattern. So in terms of sizing for this pattern, you have 2 pattern envelopes, size 6 to 14 on the first one and 14 to 22 on the second pattern envelope. Let's talk fabric. So in terms of fabric, any type of fabric of your choosing, corduroy, gabardines, plaids, just to name a few. You're going to need some lining fabric as well. So view A, you're going to need 3 buttons. View B, you're going to need some cotton or wool floss for saddle stitching. And then you're also going to need 4 buttons. View C, you're going to need 2 snaps and 4 buttons. And then view D, you're going to need 3 snaps and 6 buttons. So just be mindful of what you see on the back of that pattern envelope. Make sure, and I have said this numerous of times, okay? When you pick up these patterns at Joann's, make sure you check the pattern front and back. Make sure you check the inside of the pattern envelope content, which would be your pattern instructions. Make sure that the pattern that you're getting match the pattern instructions as well as the tissue paper. Because I don't know how many times I have been in Joann's and it doesn't match. You know, some people have switched out the pattern pieces or whatever. I have seen a lot with these patterns, so I always check. I'm that person that will go and make sure I look before I take it up to the register because I don't want to go back to Joann's to return the pattern. All right. But once again, this pattern is 7018. Let's go ahead and move over to the next vintage pattern, being 7019. So 7019 is a 1950s Mrs. dress. It's a vintage, soft, feminine dress with day into evening tendencies, okay? It's an average to sew pattern. So the neckline is enhanced by an interesting tab closure. The sleeves are cut in one with a bodice. And then it also features a button closing, extending into the wide inverted center pleat of the skirt. Okay, so that's what you have for this one, which, you know, it's unique. This one is a unique pattern. I might actually pick this one up. It is a authentic vintage reproduction pattern as well. So I could see my vintage girlies definitely picking this pattern up if they do not have it already, because you guys know the vintage girlies be finding a lot of vintage patterns at these wholesale places, okay? Or thrift stores as well, all right? But let's go ahead and get into sizing. So this one features 2 pattern envelopes, size 8 to 16 on the first one and 14 to 22 on the second pattern envelope. Let's talk sizing. So in terms of sizing for this pattern, you have, in terms of fabric for this pattern, you have chambray, linen, shantung, just to name a few. Let's talk notion. So in terms of notion, you're going to need some seam binding, 7 buttons, and then 1 large button for your tabs and some shoulder pads for this one. But once again, this pattern is 7019. And let's move over to the last pattern in this collection, 7020, which is a Mrs. Box coat. All right. So 7020 is a Butterick 1950s classic box coat. It is an average to sew pattern. So this box coat has deep square set sleeves and a cuff patch pocket. View A features a tapered push-up sleeve and button trimmed pocket. View B is braided trimmed version with push-up sleeves. And then view C is a straight cuff sleeve. Now, once again, this is a authentic vintage reproduction pattern as well. Let's talk sizing for this pattern. So it's 2 pattern envelopes, size 10 to 18 on the first one and 18 to 26 on the pattern envelope. Let's talk fabrics. So in terms of fabric, you can use linen, you can use jersey, you can use wool, just to name a few. Now view C, you can also use wool felt. You're going to need some lining fabric, and do not skip out on interfacing. Okay, so you're going to need some interfacing for this as well. And of course, with a jacket, you can use, which I always say is optional, you will need some shoulder pads, you will need buttons for this one, some braided trim as well for this one. But once again, this pattern is 7020. All right. So those are all the patterns that dropped with Butterick for the fall winter 2024. I hope you enjoyed this collection because I feel that this collection was pretty decent for Butterick patterns. What's your thoughts? Okay. Well, let me know. Let's keep this conversation going in the comment section below. Let me know which patterns you are going to pick up. Also, from the patterns that I picked, that I said that I was going to be picking up, which ones do you think I should do a sew along for? I would love to hear it. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. And if this video was educational, inspiring, and fun, please do not forget to give me a double thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time.
I come through like what's good, these weeks hit and split. Man better breeze than sprint. It's long if I choose to bite down on these pricks. X is a lyrical 4-4 and this, so make sure it's X that you wanna rally with. Oh, make a big man turn to a kid. Shout out skull, but not flat out wigs. Never seeing X's with your eyes closed. Don't move past girls behind your eyelid. Bars and flows, check out their mixture. Tell them man can't handle the fixture. It's all funny games to the person saying it's all funny games. Get beat up and cocked out the picture. Must be active if you think you can wig me. I'll tell my man put down the liquor.